Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Second Chance Queen podcast. Tonight's episode features a guest from my own pageant system. Her name is Dima Hendricks, and we are going to be interviewing Dima tonight. Dima Hendricks is a sickle cell warrior, co-founder of Through the Pain, Inc., and serves as a national spokesperson for the American Red Cross. In addition, she holds the prestigious title of International Mrs. New England 2024 and is the author of the inspiring book Unleashing Royalty. Recently, she launched the Through the Genes podcast with her sickle cell sister, Wunmi Bakari, shedding light on important issues surrounding the sickle cell disease. Join us as we delve into her journey, advocacy work, and the impact she is making in the community. Please welcome published author Dima Hendricks. Welcome to the Second Chance Queen podcast. I'm super excited to have you on.
I'm so happy with you.
I think we're going to have a blast tonight, which I think we both know we're already having a blast, but I'm super excited to have you on. What I'm going to start off doing is I'm going to ask you to tell, now everybody has like multiple second chance stories. I mean, there's giving, receiving, everybody has second chance stories, but I'd like you to tell in your own words the most prevalent second chance story that you can think of that you're comfortable sharing. If there's like a moment in time where you're like, this was my second chance that catalysts me into something else, what would that story kind of be for you?
For me, I think my second chance, I had so many, as you mentioned, but for me, I would have to say my second chance was I was involved in a curative therapy to cure my sickle cell disease, which unfortunately I still have. And instead of being cured, what happened was I had a blood clot in my heart and wasn't able to go through the rest of the procedure, unfortunately. And so they had to perform an open heart surgery. And I said my goodbyes to my family. I was ready to go.
Oh my gosh.
And I said bye to my children. I was like, I'm out, I'm going to see Jesus. But God said no, and I woke up. And so since then, I'm now on a disease modifying drug, which is kind of regulating my sickle cell. It's not as bad as it was before. And I feel that I do have a second chance, not only to live life, but to help other sickle cell warriors during their journeys.
That's amazing. So you were definitely here for a reason.
Yeah. Still trying to figure
love that. Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said that you're here not just for you, but for other warriors, because maybe God was like, you have to spread awareness and you've got to go make change for the other warriors. And you're doing just that.
I'm trying. It's a lot of work, but I am trying to do that. Yeah.
Do you find it more difficult being that you are very visible? I mean, being pageant queens, we really put ourselves out there. We really are on show a lot of the time. Do you think that makes your advocacy easier or harder?
It depends. I think before I felt it was easier because I was being vulnerable and everybody knew. And so there wouldn't be any notions or like questioning, hey, Dima's going through this or any, anyone, I felt there would be less bias just by me sharing my story. But what I've found over the years is that my story and my vulnerability allowed people to use my vulnerability as a weapon and kind of throw things back in my face that I've said or throw things back in my face that I went through. So it's kind of hard to navigate and balance. And I'm trying to set a little bit more parameters and boundaries for myself to maintain some type of psychological safety. So that's what I'm trying to get back right now.
I think too, with a more invisible illness or an illness that doesn't necessarily, a disability that doesn't present itself, you're not in a wheelchair, you're not, using crutches or anything like that, which I'm not as well. And I haven't actually shared the fact that I have fibromyalgia on the podcast. So surprise, but that is something that I can relate to, is those more invisible type illnesses, those autoimmune, the ones that are internally wreaking havoc, but you can still put on a front and appear as if you're functioning normally. And I think in those moments, it's harder too, because people are like, you don't look sick.
Right.
I hear that a lot. You don't look sick. And it's kind of like a dagger, because it's like, what do you want me to look like? I don't have a choice. So I'm sure in your situation as well, you get that kind of blowback for you don't look sick. And is it more difficult?
So for me, that's one of the biggest challenges, but because I look normal and because I put makeup on and because I present well, and I think pageantry has done a great job of training me how to think on my feet, how to walk, even when I'm in the most horrendous pain, I'm able to put on, and act like I'm fine. Um, I think what is really difficult for me is people don't understand the severity of what's happening inside of my body, because studies have shown that sickle cell crisis is just as dangerous as a heart attack. So we're going through
Wow.
all of that pain, but it's a way of our body sounding the alarm. Hey, something is wrong. Our blood cells are not, we don't have enough blood cells. They're not flowing through our veins properly. We're not getting enough oxygen. Our organs are being damaged as we speak, like while this is happening. And they're just like in the hospital taking their time, not getting to us in an appropriate manner. But if someone were to have a heart attack, you would try to make sure that they're okay and do everything to keep them alive. Whereas someone with sickle cell that's having a sickle cell crisis is like, oh, we'll take our time. We need to run tests. Are you sure you have sickle cell? It's kind of like it's very infuriating. Um, and I think a lot of it, and why we try to be so calm in the midst of it, is that we're trying to make sure we don't get kicked out of the hospital while this is happening. Because if we say the wrong thing, you best believe we'll be out on the street. I had one friend that got kicked out in the snow while having a crisis.
Wow.
And I mean, I'm talking, and this is pain, unbearable pain. I had 2 children, and I gave birth naturally, and I had a cesarean. I'd rather go through that before having a full-on vaso-occlusive crisis. So it's
Wow.
very infuriating when you're going through that and needing the medical care, and no one pays attention and no one even cares about what's going on.
That's heartbreaking, because like you said, with a heart attack, there's this sense of urgency. It's like this life or death. It's tangible. They can see it, they can touch it, so they focus on it. Whereas with a condition like yours, they there's no sense of urgency for the medical staff the way you're internally feeling.
Right.
You're experiencing the urgency and
Mhm.
needing that urgent relief, and not just pain relief. I mean, a lot of times I know with fibromyalgia, they look at it from, oh, you just want pain relief. And it's like,
No.
I don't think you understand how much pain my baseline is compared to a normal person.
Right.
I have a baseline pain level. I'm in pain every day.
Right.
And I learn to live with it, and I learn to function with it. So when you're seeing my pain and I'm asking for help with my pain, I'm might be at someone else's 10, but they don't know that. They don't understand that. There's still so much that they're not really fully grasping, is that yeah, I'm in pain, but my pain is this person's 10. I'm just not showing it. I'm not screaming. I'm not crying. I'm not carrying on because I'm at a base 4 or 5. So I think that makes this type of condition more difficult, but I can definitely relate to your struggles. I have a different set of medical conditions, but I get that relation of having that not urgent treatment when you're feeling urgent.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's something that I think you raising the awareness is really important for. And I mean, before you, I hadn't heard of sickle cell disease. I didn't know what it was. That's not something that I think is super common in terms of you just don't hear about it as much. Like you hear cancer, you hear heart attacks, you
Yeah.
hear even fibromyalgia is you start to hear it. I mean, you hear it a lot in the older folks, but not so much in the younger people. So sickle cell is something I hadn't heard of and didn't realize how catastrophic it is on your body.
So the thing is, sickle cell is the oldest molecular blood disorder. Like
Wow.
it is like the oldest. And unfortunately, it was discovered in 1910,
Wow.
that 1910 era. And because we had like the microscopes were able to see the actual blood cells that were sickled. But before that, the dawn of millennia, basically, sickle cell was around.
Yeah.
And sickle cell was developed because people who were living on the equator around the border, like around the Mediterranean, Africa, Italy, around that area, they were developed malaria. And to combat malaria, there was a mutation that happened in the genes to kind of combat the malaria. And what happened was if two individuals who had the trait procreated, they had a 25% chance of passing on the full blown sickle cell disease to their child. So that's
Wow.
how sickle cell disease was developed. And so everyone's not really aware of sickle cell, but more than
Yeah.
100,000 people in the US alone have sickle cell disease. And in fact,
Wow.
that 100,000 number was a number that was stated in the 80s. There's well over 100,000 people living in the US with sickle cell disease. In fact, there may be an estimated 8 million globally. And
Wow.
we know for sure that there are at least 4 million in Nigeria that have sickle cell
Wow.
disease. Yeah.
So is this a disease that affects a certain demographic or group of people more than other groups of people? You mentioned Africa and the Mediterranean. So is that something that is very specific on where it affects?
Unfortunately, it is known as the Black disease. However, because it is a disease that is passed down from parents to children, many people with blonde hair, blue eyes have sickle cell disease. Um, and it's not seen as common, but anyone can have sickle cell disease, and that's why there is a newborn screening in the US that's mandatory, and that's one of the markers that is currently being checked, is making sure that
Wow.
every child in the US that's born is screened for sickle cell disease.
That's a huge milestone, I think, because
Mhm,
especially going from being, the black disease, as you called it, to now it's a newborn screening. I mean, that's huge for the disease itself that it's getting that recognition.
mhm,
And you're right, this world is now becoming more of a melting pot. And
mhm,
you're seeing, different nationalities and races having children together. So it definitely makes sense that now you're starting to see the blonde hair and blue-eyed people because
mhm,
there's, white presenting of
mhm,
many different backgrounds, and
mhm,
you never really know what someone is. That's
mhm,
23andMe is a huge thing because now people are finding out their roots, and a lot of times we're shocked by what we find out. So as people, I guess, integrate together more and the love spreads, it's becoming something that, I'm glad that they are doing newborn screenings, and hopefully we'll get a better, if the 80s they were saying 100,000, hopefully we start seeing a more updated number come from the newborn screening so we can get a grasp on how really prevalent it is.
Right. And so another thing that I want to mention too, it affects people who are in around the equator who
Mhm.
were who had malaria. So that's a lot of Italians, you know.
Oh,
So you
wow.
think about it. Look
Yeah.
along the equator, people from Sicily. So you're thinking more people like
Yeah.
Aniston, Uncle Jesse from Full House. Like these people who are Greek heritage, you know, they may very well could have someone in their family that has sickle cell disease because of where they're actually from. But it's of course because it doesn't affect them, right, unfortunately we don't hear about it.
We
Yeah.
definitely need pioneers like yourself that are visible in explaining this and bringing awareness. Because, like I said before, speaking with you, I didn't realize how prevalent it was. I just had a newborn a year and a half ago, and I had no idea she was screened for sickle cell disease. And I mean, I'm sure I'd find it in her paperwork if I went
Yeah.
hunting, but the fact that it's not kind of explained and you don't know what it is,
Mhm.
that's a huge thing. So I love the work that you're doing because it's extremely necessary, and it's scary that there's something that has millions of people affected by it, but you really don't hear about it. I mean, that's terrifying, and it's a very serious illness from what you're describing.
It really is. I'm thankful now that we do have data that's coming along. We do have a sickle cell textbook. It's right. I should have pulled it out, but it's right behind me. It's like a thick textbook that's talking about every nuance of sickle cell disease, from
Wow.
genetics all the way to how sickle cell affects your mental health. That's this because think about it. It's a blood disorder. So blood is like the oil, like how you need oil for your car, you know,
Yeah.
blood is what we need to keep alive. And it affects your brain all the way down to your toenails. So um,
Wow.
having this blood disorder can make you have anything from a stroke, blindness and blindness, organ damage,
Wow.
um, ulcers on your skin, and have friends that need hip replacements. There's
Wow.
so many things that can happen to your body just because of this mutation that's caused by sickle cell disease.
Crazy. There's so many, and it sounds like it's a not a very cookie cutter disease.
No,
Two people that have the same illness could experience completely separate things,
that
and I'm
part.
sure that's difficult for
Hmm.
diagnosis.
Hmm. So also, there's so many different variations because I have SS trait disease. Like I have the SS hemoglobin disease. I know people that have something called SC, and sometimes people with just the trait alone, their bodies act like they have the full blown disease. So it just
Wow.
really depends on because we're like fingerprints or snowflakes. Every sickle cell warrior is different
Yeah.
in how the disease manifests. Um, like I have blindness in one eye. My other friend is having like she needs a hip replacement. I have another friend
Wow.
that has like ulcers. I have another friend that's in a wheelchair. I have one friend that's like has a cane. I have we have
Wow.
so many different things that that's happening to our bodies because of sickle cell. Um, I still have my spleen. It's still working. I have one of my other friends, she doesn't have a spleen. I don't
Wow.
have a gallbladder. My other friend has her gallbladder. Like it's just like it really depends on I feel like it just a luck of the draw. Like it's like rolling dice basically. It's Russian roulette sometimes. Like, oh, today you're gonna experience blindness. Oh, today you're gonna be in a lot of it's raining. Guess what?
Oh.
You're gonna be in pain all day. Um and
Ah.
unfortunately, it was raining for about a week in Massachusetts. So
Oh.
my body's not really too keen right now on, it's not happy with me or happy with the circumstances. But the week before, um, It wasn't rain, it was 90 degrees almost every day. I was exercising, walking my dog every day. I was fine, I was cool. And this week is totally different. I'm tired, I'm exhausted, my body's hurting. I'm not myself. I wasn't able to clean the way I wanted to clean. Like it's like Russian roulette. It's like it comes and goes, and it's something that I have to deal with, and just kind of figure out.
I can definitely relate, especially to what you just said about the weather, because having fibromyalgia, when the weather changes, especially being in the hurricane state of
Oh,
Florida, where
oh,
we get the pressure changes with hurricanes and we get, nasty storms that will roll in, and I can feel it coming before it hits. I mean,
mhm,
it's just, you can feel it in your body.
mhm,
So I understand that part so much.
mhm.
And it's crazy when you have people that experience illnesses like that can relate on that level, because people probably think we're nuts when we're like, there's been times where I'm like, oh, a storm's coming. And there people around me are like, it's sunny outside. And I'm like, oh, you just wait, it's coming. And then a bad thunderstorm will hit and they're like, and I'm like, I can just feel it.
Yeah.
It's something, it's like, I should be a weather person, probably. I think I missed my calling.
Someone asked me one day, like, "Are you Sophia from the Golden Girls? What do you mean? Like, what do you mean you would guess the weather?" Yeah, it's gonna rain. I feel it coming now. Like it's
Yep.
bad. How's your body feeling now during this hurricane season?
And more for me, because I have fibromyalgia and crossed with chronic fatigue syndrome. I've been feeling very drained.
Yeah.
That's how it is for me. Um, I usually nap almost every day, actually. My husband gets home from work at like 12:30, and then he jokes that he puts me to bed when he gets home because he tucks me in for a nap every day. And then I usually wake up when the baby wakes up later on. So part of it is being tired, obviously, because I have a 1.5-year-old that doesn't sleep. But the other half is, the exhaustion of my body. And, on a good day, I can get my ideal amount of sleep every day is 12 hours. I mean, I can sleep 12 hours a day and wake up and still feel drained. That's just how I function.
Yeah.
My husband functions, he gets 3 hours of sleep a night and works a normal job and he's fine. He's superhuman. I get an 8-hour night's sleep and I'm dragging the next day. And
Wow.
he's like, how do you? And it's like, I don't know, my body's just different. It just needs more of that rest, and if it doesn't get it, I pay the price. And it unfortunately spills over. You get behind on sleep one day and the
And
next day, and it gets worse and worse until you just kind of I crash. By the time the
oh,
weekend hits, like tonight, thank God it's Friday, because I'll crash and I get to sleep in tomorrow.
yeah.
But
Saturday's awesome.
I love
Oh
Saturdays.
my
My
God.
husband gets up with my baby and takes the monitor out of the room, and I get to sleep in till like 10 or 11 or whenever I just naturally wake up. So Saturdays are my favorite days of the week. But I'm sure you can relate to a lot of that. It sounds like we kind of understand each other. We may not have the same diseases and illnesses, but I think there's a group of us that understand other illnesses a little bit better and with more empathy, because
Mhm.
our symptoms may not be the same or they might overlap. Some of them probably do.
They do.
But we understand the difficulty of living with something like that and the nuances that we face that maybe other people don't understand. So you are definitely a warrior. You have earned that name for sure. um, so yeah, that's just I love hearing about that, and I love the work that you're doing. I can't say how important that is enough, because raising awareness for something that is so prevalent but so kind of flies below the radar is
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
And you're a fantastic spokesperson for it.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I think for me, it's really about spreading the awareness because warriors, their mental health's affected. because they feel alone. And what you mentioned is the commonality and the understanding, and that's something that we don't have all the time. So coming from you, I'm telling you, from me to you, I really do appreciate you just saying,
Of
"Hey, I
course.
understand," because sometimes that's all we need. So thank you for saying that.
Of course. I love, unfortunately, I don't like the connection that we're having to forge, why we're having to forge the connection.
Yeah.
Um, I don't I don't like the commonality of the diseases, but I love that we're able to relate to each other and, kind of understand what the other person is going through. I think this world is missing a lot of that these days. People are very in their own bubble, and if they
Mhm,
can't relate, it's kind of like, "Huh, well, there needs to be more connection and more understanding." And one thing that you've hit on that I think is really important is mental health. We're
mhm,
both still Sheroes ambassadors. Obviously, we have two different messages, two different focuses, but that's why I love that organization and being an ambassador is we get to connect with other women that, sometimes we have things that overlap.
mhm,
And also there's a huge component to illnesses like that people don't realize, not just the physical but the mental, dealing with the heightened pain levels. I mean, that really wears on you as an individual, and your mental health
mhm,
tanks. I know there's some times where I'm going through a fibromyalgia flare where my sleep starts tanking. As much sleep as I'm trying to get, I can't sleep because of the pain,
mhm,
and sometimes the pain medication doesn't cut it, or I've got to take something to really knock myself out. And I'm one of those people where if I'm sleep deprived, my mental health is in the gutter.
mhm,
They're very, very close together for me. So I'm sure, like you kind of said, the mental health aspect of your disease is probably something that people don't understand either. Because when you're dealing with that pain, it's difficult.
mhm. It's um it's maddening. Like, um, so imagine if someone runs over your foot, like with their car, or stabs you, and there's no relief for a very long time. It's like constant. Um, at some point, your your thinking, your thought process is the first thing to go, because
Yeah,
your brain is focused, hyper focused on trying to relieve the pain, and
yeah,
sometimes it's by any means necessary. So when you're living with this type of chronic pain and excruciating pain, there's the mental health takes a toll, and there's some times where warriors are like, I just want to leave this earth. I don't want to be here anymore. I want to find a way out. And they try to find their way out by taking their life in their own hands. And what I'm seeing now is post COVID, that the suicide rate of people who are of color has significantly rose.
oh,
Um, and so I don't know the number. I believe it's like up 40% or something crazy like that. But
wow.
also a significant higher number for sickle cell warriors, because I have a message in my phone just recently, a sickle cell warrior message like, a doctor just asked me to prove, like, just gave me a blood test to prove that I had sickle cell. Like, what? Why would you lie about something like that?
Yeah,
Why do we want to have that type of attention, like, and say something like that? So not being believed, that drives you crazy. The pain, that drives you crazy.
yeah,
Um, it's not being understood. It drives you. It's just, we're already so alone, and
yeah,
so being that's why I'm so passionate about being an advocate. It's because I really understand the importance about making sure that we're not in silos as warriors, because if we continue to maintain and be continue to be in silos, I know that's going to be maybe detrimental for the warrior community, because I'm seeing
yeah,
warriors drop like flies because they're not taking care of themselves, and because people are not about how important it is to maintain the health of a sickle cell warrior. And now we're talking about mental health. So it's just important all around for not only warriors to speak up, but doctors that know about the disease need to speak up and be advocates as well. And we have doctors now. I'm probably rambling at this point. We have some great hematologists that know about sickle cell, but there's not enough of
Hmm.
them. Not enough to go around. You know,
Yeah.
we have like um, we in Boston alone. I maybe know maybe about 10 hematologists, if that, 10
Wow.
hematologists that really specialize in sickle cell, but they handle most of New England.
That's,
Everyone, like if you're in New Hampshire, if you have sickle cell, you go to Boston. If you
oh,
live
wow.
in Rhode Island, some people, if they live in Rhode Island, they go to Boston. Vermont, you go to Boston. Like
Yeah.
it- it's like, and I live like 30 minutes away from Boston.
Hmm.
Everyone here in my city has to go to Boston for sickle cell care. And so that 5 mile radius of doctors that, like they're seeing thousands of patients at a time.
Yeah. Wow.
So we know there needs, we talked about mental health. We talked, there needs to be more research, obviously, and more awareness,
Yeah.
but there needs to be more passionate and compassionate doctors who are willing to take care of sickle cell warriors.
Yeah. That's huge. I
Yeah.
think that's something that hopefully the up and coming generation of, people that are coming out of med school, hopefully they're, finding and find their way. And I think people like yourself that are bringing awareness to the disease, maybe the more there's awareness, the more doctors can lean into that.
Yeah.
And that's something that is really important. I mean, certain types of doctors are hard to come by,
Mhm.
even with fibromyalgia. When I first started going to a doctor when I got diagnosed, it was a rheumatologist who also specialized in allergies, which I have those too. So I mean,
Right.
he was a good doctor for me, but it was a rheumatologist that was also an asthma and allergy doctor.
Mhm.
So he was my trifecta because I have all three. And
Okay.
it's hard to find doctors that would take me seriously when I was getting diagnosed because, like I kind of mentioned when we were speaking privately earlier, I was 17 years old when I got diagnosed. I was in
Mhm.
and out of hospitals. Nobody kind of could figure out for months and months and months what was wrong with me. And it took one doctor that actually listened to me and that
Mhm.
was willing to listen to what I was going through and do the test to figure out what I was through the process of elimination. And it's extremely frustrating as a patient when you're, being passed from doctor to doctor and they're kind of side eyeing you like, it's especially with fibromyalgia because there's no real test. I mean, they do like a pressure point test, but there's not a blood test like there is for sickle cell that says, oh, you've got this. They look for certain markers of other issues that you have and then, lump it together into a diagnosis. So, like for me, I was 17 years old and I was diagnosed with arthritis in certain parts of my body. And
Oh.
you don't typically hear of arthritis in a 17-year-old, so now at 31, this is, I guess, the normal age where arthritis starts kicking in for, because now I got, people make jokes all the time my age. And it's like, I've had this for like half my life now. Like, this is not
Yeah.
fun. It's not new for me, but it's frustrating getting diagnosed with those things and then having a lack of understanding. So I definitely relate to that part of your troubles and the whole mental illness because I know I some of my lowest points were struggling alone and people not understanding that the pain I was feeling was real. It wasn't a figment of my imagination, and getting someone to believe that took a toll on my mental health. So I'm
Mhm.
sure as you relate, as you, have flare ups or experience different symptoms. It's frustrating trying to get people to understand you
Mhm.
and to validate you.
Yeah. It is
It's not fun.
frustrating. It's not fun at all. I think the worst part of being an advocate with the disease is like it's so lonely because sometimes people don't want to hear about it all the time. Like enough, Dima. We know about sickle cell. We've heard it all before. We're gonna move on. We're gonna go have fun now. Let's move on to something else. Let's move on to a lighter topic. And I can't because I live in this body.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
hard to kind of move on to lighter things, and everybody else can have fun and drink and do the things that put me into a crisis. So, and it's like, hey, you want to
Oh,
drink? No, I can't. I have to chase down like 8 glasses of water before I drink that, or I'll end up in the hospital. Like, it's like
oh.
it's being a party pooper. It's really it's not a fun disease. It's not a sexy disease, and it's not uh,
Doesn't sound fun.
and it's not fun. It's not a glamorous career choice for a doctor either. Because it's either you're a surgeon and you make all the money, or you're a pediatrician, or those are the fun jobs,
The sought out, yeah.
sought out careers. Being a hematologist, a sickle cell hematologist, it takes a special kind of a person to be in this field.
Hopefully we get more of those though, because it sounds like your community definitely needs them.
We need people to actually go into hematology now. Because
Yeah.
although, well, recently the FDA approved um, approved a couple of curative therapies for sickle cell disease.
Okay.
However, it's that we're in the infancy stage
Hmm.
of the curative therapy, and we don't know the risks or the benefits of
Yeah.
the curative therapy. Shameless plug, I have a podcast where we talk about it with my partner, Wooby Bakare. And we talk about the risks, the benefits, and, about the curative therapy. And although it's a beautiful thing to be cured, some people may experience symptoms still, even though they went through this whole process.
Wow.
And because it's such a new scientific, it's like a new breakthrough. We have we lack education, and we're still going to need doctors. We're still going to need people to to make sure that we're taken care of.
Absolutely. And that is not a shameless plug, because if you didn't bring it up, I was going to. Something that ties in kind of your platform and my platform is we're talking about mental health, which is a
Yeah,
huge thing that both of us talk about.
yeah.
Um, but I want to ask specifically about this because a big thing that I do in my platform is confidence and confidence training.
Mm,
So, what would you say your definition of confidence is, and how does your illness kind of play into your confidence? Because I'm sure you've had different experiences. I know firsthand how my illnesses have affected my confidence at certain
mhm,
points in times, and how my body operates and how my body looks.
mhm.
So, has that had that same effect for you?
Yes, yes. I lack a lot. I'm going to admit there's so many times I lacked confidence. But in order to be confident is to have radical acceptance of the cards that you were dealt.
I
And
love that.
yeah, and so I'm learning to accept what God has given me, or what God has graced me with. I know I'm kind of going biblical here, but um, the Apostle Paul talked about the thorn in his side that kept him close to God, and close to his, and having a relationship with God. And it was that thorn in his side that kept him and draw him near. And I think sickle cell is that thing that keeps me in check. It keeps me an avid prayer warrior, because it's like God, like I have to pray every day.
You have to.
'Cause I'd be
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God, what happening?" And very authentic in my prayers with God. So I think radical acceptance, resilience, those are the things that keep you confident.
I love resilient. I think I say resilient like 15,000 times on every episode of my podcast because
Yeah.
it seems to be a very common underlying component of second chances.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of women's stories that I speak with, but I love hearing every woman's definition of confidence because it's always different. It's always correct. Everybody has their own truth, but I think you're the first person that really pushed the acceptance portion of confidence, which I
Mhm.
think is huge. And um, I might have talked about acceptance a little bit in some other episodes, but your definition is a very strong one because in order to feel confident and to put, your best foot forward and to be sure, you really do have to accept
Yeah.
even the negative things. A lot of people try and fight against the negativity. They think, they have to be perfect to be confident or they have to have these, positive things to be confident. I think you kind of hit something that's very raw and very real, and that
Mhm.
even the negativity, you have to accept it in order to fully be confident. And that's huge. I
Mm.
I like that definition
'Cause when you
personally.
really think about it, have you when you s my one of my favorite artists is Beyoncé,
Oh,
and
I talk about Beyoncé in a couple
oh,
episodes already,
yes,
so
like yeah, she's, like, one of my favorite artists because she can fall flat on her face on the stage and pop up. She can, like, have her shoe unbuckled and still sing her face off. She can miss dance moves and still be confident in who she is. Um, and so
love that.
that's kind of like an example, like, okay, she knows when she messed up. It's in her head, but she
Yeah.
tries not to let it get to her during her performance and still brilliantly, flawlessly executes a wonderful performance, even if her wig is in a fan and her security team has to cut her wig out of the fan. Mama is still singing her face off. And that's something I'm still learning how to do. I'm having a hard time performing through the pain.
I think you just hit every episode I ask about one of the letters of my acronym that I use in my confidence building. So I'm going to tell you what it is cuz you just hit a major one of them.
I
So my acronym is SELF,
Yeah.
and it stands for self-care prioritized because you can't be
Mhm,
confident if you're not taking care of yourself.
mhm,
Exercising your skills, because if you're not committing things to muscle memory and practicing your coping skills and all those things, then
mhm,
you're not going to be confident.
mhm.
Listening to positivity, because everybody has an angel and a devil on their shoulder. But if we listen to the angel, you're more likely to be confident. If you're listening to the negativity, you're never going to feel good about yourself.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
then F is fake it till you make it, because you sometimes are not going to feel confident. And I've used the example before that you may not, like going into our pageant later this month. I may be nervous. I may be all sorts of things backstage, but when I go on stage, I'm bringing out that inner Beyonce. And I've
Yes,
said that before. That inner Beyonce, that inner diva, she's going to come out and she's going to play for that couple of minutes that I'm on stage. And you're
exactly.
never going to know that, my feet that are partially deformed in my heels are excruciatingly painful, but you're not going to be able to tell when I'm walking that runway.
Right,
So I think that fake it till you make it is really important part, because people think, oh, you can't, I don't know how to act confident. I don't know how to be confident. And sometimes it's just like psyching yourself up
right.
almost and pulling out that. So you just hit on that without realizing it. Number one, you brought out Beyonce, which I use as my example.
Yes,
And number two, you've said that you kind of have to push through that pain and kind of fake that persona a little bit.
right.
So I think I know which letter you resonate with.
I always fake it till I make it. Like, sometimes I'm like, "What am I saying?" Like, interview, I'm like, what am I talking about right now? Am I making Lord land the plane, Dima, land the plane. So
I love seeing that side of you for a brief second too, because you've been so chill and calm and composed and confident, exuding this whole episode. And then to see you kind of like break that character for a minute and go, I don't know what I'm even talking about. It's just made my entire night. Because it shows the importance of it, though. You're literally demonstrating. Like, you're just cool, calm, and collected, and inside you're going, I don't even know what I'm talking about.
the funny thing is, I think only two people can notice when I'm like totally full of it myself, like don't know what I'm talking about. And that's my co-host Wumi, and my husband. And I think Wumi does it better because she'll look at the screen. And she'll just look at like, what is she talking? Call me after an interview and say, you messed up when you said this, right? And oh, I said that. My bad. So
Unfortunately, I think you can add me to that list because I was picking up a little bit, but I wasn't going to say nothing because I don't know any better. So I'm just like, I can tell that she's just rolling with the punches right now, but it's working. It's going.
I'm rolling.
I'm gonna see you at the pageant and just be like, Dima, what are you doing? What you doing, baby?
I don't know what's happening.
We better hope that we're not across the stage from each other on opposite ends of the wings, because I'm just gonna give you that look. What you doing?
This is why right here I can't have friends that know me like that. I will bust out laughing and break character. I'm so I'll bust out laughing. I've on stage one time during a pageant, something happened and I busted out laughing. And I was like, oh, I lost. I didn't win. Because I was something fell or something happened. But I remember laughing uncontrollably for like, I'm a nut. I'm very silly. The core root of me is a very silly person. I like to joke around a lot.
I am too.
Yeah, I can't. So two people, like there's people I can't be around, and one of them is my son, because my oldest and I will look at each other and just like lose control.
I love the irony of the statement. There's just some people that I can't be around, and one of them is my son.
I can't, because we'll look dead in each other's eyes and think the same thing, and then bust out laughing. He's not gonna be joining us for the pageant.
He's not in the audience. He's not allowed.
He's not.
So what you're telling me is I can't stand in the audience while you're on the stage. I'm before you, so I'm rooting.
That's, you know what? New England, yes, you'll be before.
Yeah, I'm G and you're N, so you better hope. Well, there's at the Still She Rose Gala, I might be off the stage, baby. You get in trouble.
No, we're gonna be sitting at the same table. We can laugh together. We can kiki. That's not gonna be judged. I think I'm just going out for my last year, and just having fun. This time, bringing my husband and my youngest child, not my oldest. We're gonna make a family trip. We're just gonna have fun. If I win, I win. If I lose, so be it. I just have to. I'm radically accepting my place, because what's mine is mine. What God has for me is for me, and I'm not going to. Because I was really over stressing about this whole pageant experience, but now I'm like, if it's meant for me, it's meant for me. Last year was meant for Shamir. She did some amazing things. She did this great commercial. She had her had her, yes, I forgot the name of her book, but she had a great initiative with her book and her scholarship program. She did what she did. Her time was her time. If it's my time, it's, thank you, Jesus. But you,
Speaking of books,
oh yeah, hold on. Unleashing Royalty. Oh,
I got your last copy on Amazon, girl.
Unleashing Royalty.
I did. I went on Amazon when I heard you wrote this. I went on Amazon and I bought it, and it was like, you got the last one. And I was like, yes, girl, I got the last one.
Oh, that's
I'm sure it's restocked now, but
yeah, we restocked since then. And now we have a workbook. And yeah, it's on sale now. I dropped the price, so the price will go back up after the pageant. So yeah, right now it's like $15, I believe. And the workbook, I think it's around the same price,
I
but
didn't know there's a workbook. I'm going to
yeah,
have to check
there's
that
a
out. Take
yeah.
my money, girl.
But Unleashing Royalty is just a royal formula of just getting your group back, basically, of just helping you, revive yourself. And I think for me, I wrote the book out of, I used to be what you would call a crown chaser. And we talked about earlier about crown chasers.
We did.
And I'm like, oh, I want this title. I want this title. And I had to examine why I wanted the crown. What was the purpose behind me being this queen? And I realized I didn't understand my full royalty until I was going through my whole ordeal of trying to be healed and knowing that God had me and I was his princess and his queen. And that's when I felt good enough, because he thought of me enough to keep me here, keep me alive, and I still had a purpose and still had a legacy to leave. So basically, you're in this book, I'm talking about not only my story, I have little, talking about the story of Esther and what made her such an important queen, and how she used her royal status to save her nation and her people, and hopefully I can use my royal status to help my sickle cell warriors. So yeah, that's Unleashing Royalty. Grab a copy if you're interested.
Yes, get a copy. I just started reading it, so you'll have to tune in a couple episodes so I can update my listeners. But I just started reading it, and I'm super excited. This is probably going to be my bathtub read. I
Yeah.
call it, because the only time I get free time to not do something is when I'm soaking in a bubble bath, which I do a lot with fibromyalgia because it releases my hips. I have a lot of problems with my hips, so I've got to soak in the heat, and this is going to be my new bathtub read. So
We want to be real cool friends. We got a lot in common. The bathtub is where it's at. I'm telling you, the bathtub is where it's
I
at.
built this house because the bathtub. One of my requirements for the house, we built this house this year. We moved in January, and I had two requirements. It had to be a 2-story house, which I'm an idiot for, because as a girl with hip problems that has an autoimmune issues, 2 stories is a pain in the ass. But it also had to have a garden bathtub that I could soak my nice plus size body all the way under the water, because I had an apartment that had a normal bathtub, and I was like the Titanic iceberg out of the bathtub. My knees were sticking up, my belly was sticking up, I couldn't get all the way in, and so I was like, I need a garden tub, and my husband was like, we're gonna find the house, and we did, and we built it, and now I get my money's worth for this house out of my bathtub.
Yep. My house didn't have a bathtub and it had 2 showers. And I was I got really like annoyed with that, as the pain was just like overwhelming. So I I called I called a carpenter, and I called the plumber. Like, we need to put a bathtub in. They knocked out the shower and put a bathtub in. It's
Oh, yay.
it was expensive. I'm still paying for it. However, it's worth every penny. Every
I
penny.
relate.
Yeah.
I have like literally I'll have to get your cell phone number after this
Yes.
and then I can text you on your personal phone. We're personal phone friends now. I some of my guests turn into personal cell phone number
Yeah.
friends. So you can join the club.
We're friends.
Um
I love it.
and I'll text you pictures of my Epsom salt bar that is in on my bathtub. I have like little jars with different types of Epsom salts, and I have jars with different types of bubble baths. That like one's like a
Oh,
muscle relaxant bath, bubble bath, and one's like a immunity for when you don't feel good
oh, I'm
bubble bath.
oh,
I'll send you some pictures
jelly, jelly.
because I need gotta have the bath. You heard it here on Second Chance Queen. Queens soak in the bath.
Yeah.
That's where royalty hangs out, in the bathtub.
I mean, Esther did it. They they had her with perfumes and baths and spa before she was before the king. She had to do all the spa treatments. So, we got to do the spa treatments too.
You're preaching to the choir here because I like to do all those
All the
things.
things, all the things. It has been amazing not only getting to know you, but an honor to be on your show. Um,
Thank you.
and hearing your second chance and learning so much about you and you getting your pink back. I mean,
Yes.
that's a dope premise. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
You did so much for me tonight. So thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you for coming on. And I love that we were able to get to talk, behind the scenes about pageantry and our experience and everything that we're going through, but also um, bond over the things we didn't realize we had in common. Before this conversation, I did not realize how much we were going to have in common. So it's been fun. And now we're going to have a hard time we're going to have to be serving diva faces. And I'm going to have to not have Dima in my head because I'm just going to see your face. Like, don't look behind stage because if I see you, I'm going to be in trouble.
I'm gonna keep it together. I'm gonna keep it together. I'm gonna keep
Can
it
you imagine though? Let's visualize us standing there together waiting to find out who's Mrs. USA and who's the first runner up. I'm not going to be able to look you in the eyeballs because we're going to be standing there and I'd be like, who is it?
together. Is it you?
Is it you?
Is it you?
we're gonna bust out laughing a little hard and the judges are gonna be like, what the hell is
Right?
going
What's
on up
wrong with
there?
these girls? What's wrong with these women?
But I love that. I love that, we're able to walk out of this, regardless of what happens. We're not just people that are competing against each other, women competing against each other. We're walking away from it
Yeah.
as friends. So,
My best friend of 25, was it? It's about to be 20 years. My best friend of 20 years, we competed in a pageant together. And that's how we first met. Um,
oh, that's
so yeah,
amazing.
and she's like it right now. She's like my bestie right now. So that's how I meet my closest friends is through pageantry. Because that's another reason why I kind of still do it a little bit. Um, because I meet really awesome women that are movers and shakers and we get each other, so
Yeah.
it's a cool feeling.
This caliber of women, when you're in, especially the Mrs. Pageantry, when you're in our type of division and our type of environment, the caliber of women, it's not just women that want to look pretty and do the things. There are some women that we compete against that are like that. They want the crown, they want the prestige, they want to look pretty, they like the gowns. That's part of pageantry. But then you meet women like yourself where you're doing the work, and like Amber, who I interviewed a couple weeks ago, who we're competing against, she's doing the work. And you meet these women that are changing legislature and raising awareness for a disease that I wasn't aware of. You've reached an audience member just by having this conversation. I may not have stumbled across your podcast before without hearing that it was something that you did. because sickle cell disease wasn't something that was on my radar. But now I'm going to listen because I want to know the things, and I want to support, a newfound sister. So, and that's why I bought the book, because I was like, she's got a book, I'm going to buy it because I want to support my sister. So I love that about the stage of pageantry that we're in now. It's women that are out there doing the things, putting the work in, and we just become friends, and we run the race parallel to each other instead of, trying to
Against,
trip each
yeah.
other.
Right. Never that. I could never, yeah, tripping you. If I'm trying to trip you, I'm tripping myself. You know what I mean? That's how I feel. And we have
Yeah,
to lift each other up during this whole ordeal. We just gotta lift each other up. Yeah.
absolutely. I agree completely.
Yeah.
Well, it has been an absolute blast.
Yeah.
And I feel like we could probably be on this call all night long if we wanted to, because we could probably talk about 50 million things. Thank you so much for coming on. And thank you to everybody for joining the Second Chance Queen podcast with myself and Dima Hendricks. And I will see you next time.